Hey, this is Max from Abstract Automation here. If you've tried to use ChatGPT to write your Deluge code in Zoho for you, and you've been a little disappointed in the results, you're not alone. But I've got some tips here that I'm going to share with you that will certainly give you better results. I still don't think things are at the point where a non-programmer can really just get code that's ready to use out of ChatGPT. But for somebody who's got coding experience, it can certainly save you time on a good day. But sometimes ChatGPT has a bad day. Let's get into it. A couple of tips I'd like to start with. First of all, I think that right away, a good idea is if you're going to regularly use ChatGPT to generate code for you, I strongly suggest getting off of the free version and onto at least the plus version that costs about $20 a month. To some of its more advanced reasoning, it will also be much quicker and faster in its responses. And understand that using ChatGPT to generate code is very much a conversation with that AI model. So it is not like you give it a huge paragraph of information of what you want it to do and it does it and it gets it right the first time and you copy and paste and you're done. Don't have that expectation. It's very much a back and forth refinement process. And because of that, there are times when, based on the complexity of a task, that it can take so many iterations that I could have just done it myself a lot quicker. So you will learn over time when you go to ChatGPT to do something for you versus when you go the old school route and do it yourself. Paid version, number one. You might want to use one of the other models that lean more towards coding. So for example, the O4 model Mini High is good at reasoning, or the Mini here O4 is good at coding. So play around with which ones you like and go with it. A couple of things. First of all, it doesn't seem like OpenAI or ChatGPT has a real axe of Deluge, which is the scripting language that Zoho uses. You will find, at least in my experience, I will ask it to write Deluge code for, say, Zoho CRM, and it will insert parts of code that are totally not part of the Deluge scripting language. It'll start putting in their JavaScript and other sort of techniques, and then you go and you paste that code into Zoho, and of course it doesn't work, right? And then you're going back and forth with this whole troubleshooting process with the AI model. First of all, when you put your request in, make sure that you at least do state that you are asking it for Deluge code and mention the Zoho app or apps that are involved in the code. That usually helps minimize some of those problems I just mentioned, but they still will crop up. Next thing is, especially if you're coding for Zoho CRM, give it your fields, the list of field names of your module. So the best way to do that, and I'll show you that here. Here I have a demo instance of Zoho CRM. I'm on the new UI. And if I go to the setup area here and do a search for API, if you go to CRM API and API names here on this tab, these are all of your modules in Zoho CRM. So this will include all the stock modules as well as any custom modules that you may have added. Let's say I need ChatGPT to give me some code involving the accounts module and the contacts module in the CRM. So what I would do is I would go into the accounts module here. Here's all of the fields listed, including your custom fields, and just grab all this text like this and Control-C, copy it to your clipboard. And then when you bring up ChatGPT, you can say, I need some Deluge code. Here's my accounts module. And then what I also tell it, by the way, is to not give me back any solution or code until it understands what I'm asking it to produce. So if you don't say that, ChatGPT, it's annoying. You haven't even asked it a question yet, and it starts giving you answers to stuff that you're not even asking it. So you could say, do not produce any code until I ask. And then I'll say, we will use Deluge for Zoho CRM. So I gave it that. I forgot to paste the field, so let me just do that and then paste it. So it's read that information. It has that info. Now let me do the same with the contacts module information. So here is our accounts module, and we're going to go back up to the top and flip over to contacts. We're going to grab all this text here and copy that to my clipboard, and then say, here is my contacts module. Now I should say that Zoho is working on native functionality to do this sort of thing right within Zoho CRM and the other apps without you having to go to an outside AI resource like OpenAI, ChatGPT. They've shown some demos and some previews of that functionality. It looks promising. I have not personally used it myself, so I can't say how good it is or it isn't. I would imagine that even if it isn't great right away, they'll refine it and it will be amazing, and everything we're looking at here will probably be obsolete or no longer needed. But until then, I'm going to stay this course and leverage ChatGPT for coding when I can. So we got the contact fields in here, we got the account fields in here, and so now we can start asking it to make us some code. Now, another tip I have is what you want, perfectly fine. It usually understands what you're asking for. But if you have a more of a programmer's mindset coming into this, what you might want to do, what I do often is I will actually start the code in Zoho and I will just write comments of what I would sort of fill in the blanks with code. So let me give you an example of that. I think I have something on my other screen here. So here is a custom function I'm working on, and the point of this custom function is whenever the address changes, the billing address changes on an account in the CRM, I want the mailing address of the related contacts to be updated with that same address information. Pretty common workflow we do all the time for people. So it has all the field names based on the API information that I copied and pasted. And what I've done here is just written some comments into my Deluge editor, get the account record based on parameter IDs, okay? Loop through all related contacts, pull account billing address info into contacts mailing address info, and then post info message that it was a success. I'm actually going to add another line here, which is going to say store billing address field values to variables. Okay, I want it to do that step instead of it sort of dealing with that on the fly here. So what this does is it gives you a little bit more control over the approach that the AI takes in writing the code. If you don't give it this kind of context, it very well might produce workable code, but it might go about it in an awkward way, or at least a way that is not in your same style of coding. And so what a danger that exists. So first of all, I am a very strong believer in you should not deploy or use any code that you do not fully understand. Let me make that clear. And that is why I said in the beginning of the video that people that are not programmers do not have the expectation of just asking ChatGPT for something, it spitting out some code, copy paste, you're done, you're on your way. You still need to test the code that gets produced. If you have access to a sandbox for your Zoho CRM, I strongly recommend that. And so, because it can produce code that does things that misunderstood what you were asking, and that can have an effect on your data, and that's just generally not a good idea. So please be careful. I'm going to take this and copy it, and I'm going to essentially ask it to fill in the blanks. So I'm going to say, here are code comments I started. Can you fill in the code blanks? Let's see what it gives us. This is a great example. So right away, I can see that it made a mistake. And let me show you what I'm talking about. So we are passing the account ID as a parameter. And I know this is going to get really codey for developers here. But what we'll see here is, see, I have an argument that I'm sending to the function, which is account ID. So what the mistake that ChatGPT made is it's using this input.account ID. Now that would work if this were Zoho Creator, okay? But this is not Zoho Creator, this is Zoho CRM. So that right there will not work at all. And what this actually needs to be is just take out that input part. And so what I'm going to do, instead of copying this and using this code, I'm going to say input dot does not work in Zoho CRM. Account ID will be passed as a param. Okay, so still, one thing you'll also notice is that it seems like ChatGPT doesn't quite officially recognize Zoho Deluge, or at least it's not in its sort of category of programming language. You see here that it's identifying this code as Java, right? Now, I don't know why it does that. Maybe it's because they have a similar look or similar syntax, but this is the kind of weird stuff that you have to navigate. We're getting our account ID. You see that it now knows to not do that input dot thing. But what I want to show here is what's really good is that because we fed it the field names, the API field names, it's getting the field names correct. So if you don't do that, that is a very common area that you'll struggle with or stumble with. So if you just say, without feeding it that information, if you just told it what you wanted, it might call billing code incorrectly. It might mark as billing zip or, you know, state, it might say province or something like that, right? But since we gave it the actual names of the fields, it knows what we're talking about and it knows what to use. Just looking at this here on the fly, just seeing if I see anything that's wrong. It did do a for loop correctly, so this is another area that it often goofs up on. I see sometimes where it'll do stuff like it'll create a while loop, it'll create for loops that are formatted or C# or some other programming language, and they don't work in Deluge. So just keep an eye on that area. I'm not quite sure if this is 100%. This to string doesn't seem to be necessary to me. It's just an ID number. Overall, this looks pretty good. I'm not going to run it to test it here, but I would say it did a pretty good job with this. So this is just such a super simple request, right? So I wouldn't expect it to get too much wrong here. If you have a much more complex, elaborate function that you're trying to put together, the more complex it is, the more mistakes ChatGPT is likely to make. Now, here's one last piece of advice that I suggest, and I don't know if the free version can do this, but once you do get the code corrected, what I suggest is if you make any manual edits to the code to make corrections yourself after GPT kind of gives you that head start, make sure you take all the code and paste it back into ChatGPT and tell it, this is my final code that I manually corrected, and then please remember what we've done today for next time, okay? Now, that will help you, and the more you code with ChatGPT, it will get better and better at what it produces for you. It will still, at random times, fall back on bad habits. It's really weird. I've noticed that there's things that I've told it not to do a million times, and it's good for a while, and then all of a sudden it starts doing that bad thing again. So just keep your eye on that. But yeah, that's just a few tidbits that I can share here. ChatGPT, it does save a lot of time, but it's not going to make you a programmer if you don't have that experience. It probably is a good tool to use to learn how to program, I would say. But if you're in that mode, definitely test, work in a sandbox, get a demo account, whatever it takes to sort of be careful of screwing up your production apps, okay, and your production code. And if you're modifying code that is already working, that somebody else wrote, back up that code first. Copy it, save it to a file, put it somewhere safe. And this way, if ChatGPT messes something up, you can put things back where they were. Hope this all helps. Let me know if you would like to see more videos of this style. I can dive deeper into this sort of thing. This is sort of like off the cuff. I didn't really prepare too much for this video today, but I'm just curious if people want to see this kind of thing. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.